Hey guys, welcome back to the Smoke Shack. This is Steven. Today's episode of Two Perspectives, we've got a very special one because we are doing a re-rating. That's right, we're doing the Padron Series. This is the 3000, or that's the size, which is a 5.5 by 52. Connor previously did this Padron cigar and had it really ranked or rated pretty low. So I wanted to make sure that we re-rated this. We put it on the top of our list, and what a more special way to do it than with a two perspectives. So we're going to have Connor re-rating it as far as his perspective, and then I'm going to be rating it for the first time here. This is a different size than his size before. I forget what he had there. You can go over that video to see what the size was. I believe it was something along the lines of the 5.5 size. It might be the same exact size. Nicaraguan binder, Nicaraguan fillers, and then the Nicaraguan wrapper, which is what you're looking at there on top. As far as the craftsmanship score goes, the presentation, I'm just not a huge fan of that small looking band on the cigar. Do like that it does look classic, looks very classy. Again, classic, very Padron-like. I do love the wood boxes as well. So I do have this thing rated as a 7 out of 10, but really doesn't score really high for me because I don't prefer these small classic looking bands. As far as the construction goes here, I have this thing rated as a 7 out of 10. It is just rather bumpy, and it's very, very firm. Even for a box press, on all sides it's firm. You know, with a box press, typically on the sides, it's quite firm. And then the top has some extra give, but this is quite firm all the way around. So a 7 out of 10 there. Color, it looks really good there on the toe. Very vibrant, good mixture. But as far as the wrapper, there are just a couple little spots, like right there on the wrapper, and then right here on the wrapper. I do have a break up here in the wrapper by the band. That one was a self-inflicted guy. Doesn't come with the cellophane, and I put it down on the table, and it just cracked the wrapper there. Well, I just cracked it right now, or it fell off, but it must have cracked whenever I put the cigar down. So I will not be taking that into consideration as far as, you know, construction and all that. So the color, 9 out of 10 here though for the cigar, just because of those little marks there. Otherwise, the wrapper looks fantastic, and then a good vibrant amount of color there on the toe. This vitola I have as an 8 out of 10. Just not something that I really like, as far as I don't really like box press cigars, but I think this is quite thin for a box press. The 52 size and a 5.5, just a little too long and thin. So again, 8 out of 10, just a very personal number there. A 1.47 for the craftsmanship score here. Again, that's a number out of 2. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it, light it open, or light it up, cut it open, light it up, and then get you my first impressions here. Very, very woody here to start, and then maybe even a little bit of chocolate in the background as well. Gonna go ahead and smoke it down towards about the end of the first third, and then catch it back up with my thoughts there on the first third. But as far as opening impressions, this thing's got some flavor. It's got a good amount of balance, maybe just a little dry here as far as those just opening notes. But other than that, it's smoking pretty great. The draw's really good. Looking forward to seeing what this thing brings. Gonna send it over to Connor for his pre-light.
Hey, welcome back here to the Smoke Shack. Steve, thanks for introducing the cigar. As Steve mentioned, the Padron 2000 series Maduro wrapper. You know, if you have been following along with our channel, I recently smoked this cigar and gave it quite a low score for this brand. After having one that I really quite like the flavor of, the flavor is what really hurt the cigar the first time around. This is from a different cigar lounge. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can't get this a better score. You know, the first time around I was like, wow, that's awfully low for a Padron. Wanted to revisit it. I think I just had a bad stick the first time, but we are going to figure that out now. Getting right into the craftsmanship score. The presentation I have at a 7 out of 10. The band is just slightly plain. The box is, in my opinion, just not the greatest. It is wood, so actually I think a 7 out of 10 is fair. I'm not really blown away with it. The construction I have at a 7 out of 10. There's bleach spots. The veins look really wrinkled around the veins, like right here. The cap is slightly wrinkled. And the band looks like it's put on too tight, like it's choking off the wrapper. Mentioned that in the first time I reviewed this. Also, the Keller is a 7 out of 10 here. Well, the Maduro is slightly different. It just, like, there's bleach spots throughout. And then the Vitola is a 10 out of 10. I am a fan of the Robusto size, so I'm going to go ahead, give it a cut. Off the wrapper, it's very heavy on the barnyard and hay. Very earthy. Maybe a little spice there on the foot. Some cedar and barnyard on the dry draw. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up. Fantastic draw. Very heavy on the graham cracker cereal taste. So I'm going to go ahead, smoke this down, and bring you back with my thoughts on the first third. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, bringing you guys back in here on the first third. Flavor profile here is pretty simple. It's dark chocolate, cedar, and a leather in the background as well. That dark chocolate is very prominent. It's more prominent than the other flavors. Not that it's, you know, dry or too sweet or anything. It's just more prominent than the others. So the balance is a little off there. But otherwise, it's about a 7 out of 10 as far as intensity or that richness of flavor, how easy it is to pick up. And the enjoyability here I have as an 8 out of 10. Just 3 flavors. It's very simple, but it is quite flavorful and you know, just has good balance as well. Not great balance, but it is enjoyable. I do like that dark chocolate. It really does pop, and I'm a fan of chocolatier cigars, so I do like that. That increases the enjoyability factor a little bit for me. So an 8 out of 10 here for the cigar. Complexity is really where the cigar takes a hit here in the first third, and that's just because it has 3 flavors. It is a 5 out of 10 here. Again, the balance is slightly off, but that's not really why it's getting a 5 out of 10. It's getting a 5 just because there's 3 flavors here in the flavor profile. Would like them to be, you know, to add 1 or 2 more flavors, but really cannot give too much more than a 5 here with the, you know, the balance being off as well. It probably couldn't give much more than a 7 with just there being 3 flavors here in this flavor profile. Finish here is a 9 out of 10 though. Very, very rich on that dark chocolate note, and it's very long in length as well. A draw, a 9 out of 10. Consistency, a 9 out of 10, or our char line. Looks pretty great right now. Again, just not perfect. It's a 9 out of 10. Combustion, a 9 out of 10. The ash structure, before coming back in, it looked pretty good. It looked pretty solid, but did just kind of fall off. It looked like it could fall off at any moment in a couple of different areas, and it just happened to do that. So a 6 out of 10 here because it fell off, and it had some good look to it, but just, again, it fell off. Didn't really have a chance to show you guys, so I've got to rank it a little bit lower to 6. Ash color, however, it's got a very good dark or light gray look in the ash color. The very first little bit of ash was a little white and then got a little bit grayer, so I had to take off just for that, but pretty consistent here with that dark gray, or that lighter gray, I apologize, and maybe just a touch of white in spots. So an 8 out of 10 here for that ash color. Resting smoke, an 8 out of 10. Drawing smoke, a 10 out of 10, getting really nice big puffs of smoke out of the cigar. Mouthfeel is a 9 out of 10. I'm actually getting a lot of flavor encompassing my whole mouth here. It's very enjoyable. Temperature, 10 out of 10. Again, getting right up there to the cherry and then not pulling any harsh temperature through the cigar. Aroma, though, is a 6 out of 10, giving us a 7.51 for the opening third here. It's really a great score for only having 3 flavors in the flavor profile. So, gonna go ahead and smoke it down towards the end of the second third and then catch you back up with my thoughts. Now I'm gonna send it over to Connor for his thoughts on the first third.
Bring you back in here for my thoughts on the first third. You know, this is already much better than the first time I had this for a review. The ash structure is pretty good there. It looks like it's going to fall off any second, so I wanted to bring it back in here. Burn line is just slightly uneven, but the flavor that I'm getting, it's not really the most intense. I have it at a 7 out of 10. It's very heavy on the hazelnut, with a cream and maybe like a tart cherry, like a creamy hazelnut. I'm not attributing that creaminess to a flavor in itself. That's why I'm leaving the intensity at a 7. I'm really only getting that tart hazelnut, kind of like a black cherry maybe. So 7 out of 10 there for the intensity. It's very enjoyable, but I'm not getting a whole lot of flavors, so 8 out of 10. And the complexity is also a 7 out of 10. Very smooth finish though. It's a very creamy finish with a mild spice in there. 10 out of 10 on the finish. I have the draw is fantastic. Very consistent. 10 out of 10 for there. As you can see here. Absolutely ideal draw. Combustion I have at an 8 out of 10. Well, the burn line is pretty good. I can't really get too close to it. It's warm just underneath it. Ash structure, 8 out of 10. It's hanging on there. Little flaky. Ash color, I have it a 7 out of 10. There's some blacker spots here on this side, but it's pretty nice white and gray mixed throughout. The resting smoke is pretty darn good on this cigar. I have it at a 9 out of 10 just because it does come out of the cap a little bit and it's slightish gray, but there is a nice blue hue coming right off of that burn line pretty consistently throughout that first third. Drawing smoke, mouthfeel, temperature, and aroma are all fantastic on this cigar. The drawing smoke, as you saw there, it's just right. I mean, this is ideal draw. The mouthfeel is very smooth and it's not super dry. It's actually not dry at all. Jumping right into the strength here, I have it at a 5 out of 10. It's medium, probably medium to full. I think this is going to continue to pick up. Very enjoyable here on the first third for a score of an 8.01. I'm going to go ahead and kick this back over to Steve for his thoughts on the second third, and I'll see you back here for my thoughts on the second third. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, guys, bringing you back in here at the end of the second third here of this cigar. The flavor profile here in the middle third is dark chocolate, espresso, cedar, and some white pepper. Very rich in flavor. Really enjoying this flavor profile as well. A 8 out of 10 here for the intensity or richness of flavor. Very, very rich. You're picking up the notes. You know what they are. They're rich in your mouth. Not an extreme amount of richness, but yeah, it's very obvious what you're tasting in your mouth. Enjoyability, a 10 out of 10. Very good balance here in this third. Not phenomenal balance, but it is a lot better than that first third where it was just slightly dry. It's got a whole lot of balance here, but that chocolate and espresso are really pushing themselves in front of all the other flavors. Still getting a little bit of that black pepper on, on the back end of the palate, but just not perfectly balanced here. An 8 out of 10 here for the complexity. Finish, 9 out of 10. It's still really long and rich in flavor here. The draw, a 10 out of 10. A 9 out of 10 on the consistency or our char line. It's very, very close to perfect there for that char line. A 9 out of 10 there on the combustion. 6 out of 10 here on this ash structure. Just quite flaky. Got a lot of random looking lines in here, not those nice even lines. It's just, they're all over the place. And then it did fall off there before I cut back in here. Obviously, we've had about a ½ inch of smoking before cutting back in. I try to knock it off, knock the ash off right after I'm done speaking to you guys, and then carry over that entire third's ash. And obviously, the first half of this third did fall off already. So 6 out of 10 there for the structure. 8 out of 10 here for the ash color. It's got a good consistency in it, just a couple of black spots and some lighter spots as well. So an 8 out of 10 there. Resting smoke, a 9 out of 10. Really coming off of the char line pretty heavily here on this cigar. A 10 out of 10 on the drawing smoke, a 10 out of 10 on the mouthfeel. Very encompassing on the whole mouth. Temperature is a 9 out of 10. It's just not able to grab all the way up at that char line. It's a little bit hot, so I've got to move the fingers down a little bit, but not pulling any temperature through. 7 out of 10 here on the aroma, and 8.64 for this middle third. It's a big spike up, and definitely a big spike up in my enjoyability as well of this cigar. Hopefully that continues here in the final third, and get you a good score here for that final third. Gonna go ahead and smoke it down into that final third. Send it over to Connor now for his thoughts on the second third.
Bringing you back in here for my thoughts on the second third. The intensity has picked up just a little bit, bumping that up to a 6 out of 10 there on the intensity scale. Now the flavor profile really does pick up here in the second third. That hazelnut remains with a bit of a creaminess. However, there's a barnyard, kind of like a funky blue cheese flavor profile that really picked up there in the second third, and absolutely not in a bad way. It's a very good funk, like something you would want in a well-aged tobacco. I have the intensity up to an 8. That hazelnut is really the main profile here, with the enjoyability also going up to a 9 because I am getting more flavor out of this. Complexity at a 10 out of 10 with a very good finish at a 10 out of 10. It really does leave the mouth coated. The draw is fantastic and very consistent, both 10 out of 10s. The combustion I have at a 9 out of 10. The burn line is pretty even. It just ashed itself before we popped back in here. However, you still can't touch that burn line. Ash structure, 8 out of 10. It was pretty good, but a little flaky. And the color at an 8 out of 10, it really evened out to like a nice salt and pepper. Very mild pepper color going on there in the second third. The resting smoke is pretty good, 9 out of 10. It's really good, except it's kind of grayish, but it's coming off right at the perfect spot. Drawing smoke is a 10 out of 10. I really do enjoy it. The mouthfeel, it's just a 9 out of 10. It's slightly dry on my palate. Bringing that temperature to an 8 out of 10, I think it's warmed up, and that's what's bringing that dryness out in the cigar. However, the room aroma is still a very good 10 out of 10. There is a lot of smell coming off of this cigar. The room aroma is more like a cherry smell, like a cherry cedar, hickory type wood. Bringing that second, third score up to an 8.82. I'm going to go ahead, finish this up, and kick it back over for Steve for his thoughts on his final third and then his overall score.
Thanks, Connor. Bringing you guys back in here for my final third here of this cigar. The flavor profile here is espresso, cream, and some spicy red pepper. At least those are the 3 main flavors that I'm picking up. Might be some subtleties in the background. It's quite hot here now within the last inch of the cigar, so hard to pick up a lot of those flavor notes. The espresso here is just a tad bit bitter. Really the intensity though, just the richness of flavor really peaks down here in the final third. I actually have this as a 5 out of 10. Flavors were kind of hard to really to diagnose in my mouth. It's hard to pick them up, not as easy as those first 2 thirds. which was really surprising to me for this final third. Really, that was the only big knock here. Enjoyability, an 8 out of 10. I still really like the flavor profile here, even though it's on the more simple side and a little bit bitter. Which brings me to that complexity score, a 6 out of 10 here, just a little bit off balance, and then 3 flavors. But off balance, it's just the espresso is a little bit just too bitter here on the flavor profile. 10 out of 10 though on the finish, very, very spicy on that red pepper, and it lingers on the tongue throughout that entire finish. Very, very nice. It's rich in flavor as well. A 10 out of 10 here on the draw. Consistency or our char line, still a 9 out of 10. Just a little off perfect, really. As far as the combustion, I got this as an 8 out of 10, smoking a little bit faster here in the final third. Ash structure, I have it as a 5 out of 10. It could be a 6, but it looks like it's actually this little part's just going to fall off here at any moment. A lot of lines, a lot of flakes in that ash. Still got a good solid look to it, so that's why it's at a 5. 8 out of 10 here for the ash color. Not a whole lot of change. A good, still that light gray to it, but a lot of black spots throughout that ash, so an 8. 9 out of 10 here on the resting smoke, 10 out of 10 on the drawing smoke, getting lots of puffs or lots of smoke within each puff. 10 out of 10 still on the mouthfeel. Might be one of the best mouthfeel cigars that I've had. So just fully encompassed my mouth throughout the whole cigar. Temperature here in the final third, it's getting hot up near the char line. Really, it's tamed down a little bit on that char line, so it can get a little bit closer, but really it's pulling a lot more heat through. So a 7 out of 10 here. And then the aroma is 7 out of 10 here as well, giving the final third a 7.52. My strength score here, I got this at a 6 out of 10 for that strength. I think with a larger vitola, we'll probably be reaching a 7.5, 8. But with the smaller vitola, it really has not had a chance to really kick up in power or in that strength or that nicotine strength. So a 6 out of 10 here with the smaller vitola. Does hit rather hard here in the final third, but nothing that's going to knock you off your boots or knock you off your feet. Maybe the bigger vitola is going to be a lot more strong there, and probably a lot more rich in flavor as well. Although we had some really good rich flavor here throughout this cigar, actually running you through each of my thirds here. 7.51 for the first third. Really not a whole lot to knock besides the complexity there in the first third. A little dry there in the flavor profile, and then only 3 flavors in the flavor profile. Peaks up in that second third to an 8.64, was definitely our best third by far, and definitely the most enjoyable, as I had that as a 10 out of 10 on enjoyability. And then in this final third, the intensity takes a hit, and that complexity still not real great. A 6 out of 10 here for that complexity, and a 5 out of 10 there for the intensity or richness of flavor. This final third, I had that 7.52. So it's a big drop compared to the middle third, but really consistent around the 7.51 number, because that first third was 7.51 and then 7.52 in the final third. So getting us that final score here of a 7.89 for this cigar. I really enjoyed it. I like the flavor profiles. It's a little bit more on the simple side. That's why it's going to score a little bit lower here, especially with our complexity score. And then obviously in the final third, with the richness of flavor peaking down, it did not help this cigar. But other than that, it's still a really well-rounded cigar. I'm not sure how Connor scored this. I believe he scored it in the 4s. I'm not sure how he scored it in the 4s before. I could see if the draw was a little bit looser, how it could have definitely been a lot more harsh, as that espresso can be quite bitter, especially if you're smoking this a little too quickly. So maybe that's what Connor was picking up there. I'm interested to see what he thinks on this re-review and what his score is. So let's head over now to see what his score is.
Bringing you back in here with my thoughts on the final third and the overall score. I did keep this at a 6 out of 7 on the full to medium strength. It was very evenly delivered, but it didn't pick up there at the end. Jumping into the flavor profile, the flavor again turned over. It was a leathery, peppery, kind of muskiness with that hazelnut still as like the main predominant flavor throughout the entire cigar. Very enjoyable here in the second third. The flavor profile, everything is a 10 out of 10. The intensity, enjoyability bumped up there. The draw and consistency were the leading factors throughout. They were phenomenal. Combustion bumped down to an 8 out of 10, and the ash structure, it did fall off a couple of times there in that final third, 7 out of 10. Color also slightly improved. It was pretty gray, 9 out of 10. Really the only thing that fell down here in the final third was the temperature. It was pretty warm there throughout that final third, bringing the overall final third score to a 9.2. So it did improve all three thirds. 8.01 in the first third. That was just due to the flavor and the complexity. 8.82 in the second third, and a 9.2 in the final third. I did have a craftsmanship score of a 1.43. I just thought it could be slightly better, if not a lot better. However, it is a much better score here on the second time around with the Padron 2000 series. 8.68 for my final third. Kicking this back over to Steve to give his thoughts and close us out. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time here on the Smoke Shack.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, so really this cigar was really fantastic on my end. I didn't get to see what Connor's score is, so I will be interested to see when I put the video together what he ended up getting. As far as price per point score goes for this cigar, these things MSRP for about $10, which is really a great price point for a Padron cigar. A little bit on their more wallet-friendly options from Padron, so respectful there. So $10 for, and then our price per point score, since we had a 7.89, that gives us a price per point score of 1.27 for this cigar. It's a pretty good score here. I would like it to be just slightly lower for a $10 stick, but really a solid score. I would definitely like to revisit this, maybe in a larger vitola, to see if that strength hits higher and that intensity or richness of flavor hits more, and we can pick up more of the subtle flavors, because I feel like in that second third there were a lot more flavors that I did not pick up. There was definitely something savory in the background. I noted that here, but I just didn't ever pick up what it was. So maybe in that larger vitola, be able to pick out what those subtle flavors are, and then even in that first and final third there might be more subtle flavors here, which would end up getting the score a lot higher of a score, or this cigar a lot higher of a score. If you like the video, drop a like, comment if you've had this Padron 3000 or Series 3000. I believe these are the Maduros. Yes, these are the Maduros. Definitely with the flavor profile, it's consistent with the Maduro, with the sweeter characteristics like that dark chocolate that was in there. So definitely thinking that this was the Maduro, but not sure. Connor just kind of handed me one, and I was just going off of what I just saw in my hand. So I do believe these are the Maduros. But anyway, go ahead and comment if you had the Maduros in the past. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time here on the Smoke Shack.